All right, healthy reasoners. I am looking forward to this episode because we're going to be talking about something that includes fatty liver, cholesterol issues, stubborn belly fat, um, thighs that won't quit. You know, all of these different things that are associated with cholesterol and fat in general. So if you have any of those issues, get ready to go.
Welcome to the Healthy Reasonings podcast with Dr. Andre. You are now listening to your number one source for clear, unfiltered conversations about your health and wellness. Join us every Tuesday for success stories, educational topics, and interviews with wellness experts from around the world. You can listen to this podcast on your computer, phone, or any other electronic device that streams podcasts, or download each episode and listen to it on the go. Let's get started with today's episode.
All right, so we're back, and I'm taking a break from talking about cancer this week in episode 34. We're talking a little bit instead about cholesterol. And the reason why we ended up here is because I got an interesting voice note from a client of mine this week, a client who has been a part of our Teshuva Wellness 10-week weight loss challenge. And one of the key points that we make during our weight loss programs is that the issue is really not about weight loss, and oftentimes it has little or nothing to do with necessarily you eating too much, but instead the issue is generally that the body has different blocks that need to be assisted. The body needs to be able to regulate itself, its metabolism, its ability to redistribute energy in a way that makes sense. And when it's not able to do this, the unfortunate impact on the body is that you start to store weight, store energy in the form of weight or fat. And it doesn't have to be this way, because oftentimes dieting isn't necessarily the answer. And today we're going to talk about what the answer is when we talk about cholesterol. So before we begin, I want to remind you that the Healthy Reasonings podcast is your number one podcast for clear, unfiltered information about your health and wellness. And even though we're speaking about your health and wellness, we are not providing personal advice for your specific medical concern. If you have a medical concern, please visit your healthcare professional of choice to give you advice that's unique to your situation. We're just giving general information here, very useful information, but general nonetheless. So cholesterol, I want to present to you a hypothetical situation. It actually forms the basis for how I manage patients who have elevated cholesterol, but I still want to present it as a hypothetical situation just so that you can feel free to explore it in that vein. So I want you to imagine, let me see what I have here. I think I have something in the, let's pick this up here. I don't know what this is. I want you to imagine that this thingy here gets into your bloodstream, and I don't even know what this is. It's some sort of souvenir from a country, and that's fine, because let's assume that this gets into your bloodstream, and let's assume that your bloodstream is made of water primarily. So the body doesn't quite yet know what to do with this, and so it has to figure out, first of all, if this is harmful, and if it is, how do I prevent it from, for example, bursting open? I say let's a cork here and a cork here. How do I prevent this from bursting open and damaging organs that I don't want it to damage, because I don't even know what's in here yet? And the way how I envision it is that the body basically just decides that it's going to transport this substance, whatever this is, from a place where it can do a lot of harm or damage if it were to spill, to a place where it can do less harm or less damage if it were to spill. So for example, it doesn't want it in the bloodstream because then it could get to the brain, it could get to the heart, it could get to vital organs. It doesn't really want that. So it may, for example, transport it around to the stubborn belly fat that we hate so much. In ladies, a lot of times under the thighs, under the arms here, and also to the thighs. And of course in men, they'll get something called a beer belly, which oftentimes has nothing to do with beer. So what the body often does is that it takes a big blob of oil and just engulfs this thing here. And because oil and water don't mix, then it's easy for it to float this whole bubble of cholesterol or oil with this substance inside it and float it down the bloodstream like a nice little raft, knowing that because it has a protective layer of cholesterol around it, it's not going to be able to burst and come into contact with critical organs or structures along the way. And so it can almost float it down the river, so to speak, to another place in the body where it's a bit safer to have it stored. And then it can wrap it up in some nice big chunks of fat, and in so doing insulate the vital organs and vital areas of the body from whatever is inside here. And looking at cholesterol that way changes the narrative in many ways, and yet it doesn't. Because when we talk about cholesterol, and remember today we're not talking about the fact that cholesterol can be a foundation molecule for like building hormones and other substances in the body. Today we're talking primarily about how cholesterol impacts toxins and the cardiovascular system. So for example, when you talk about the various types of cholesterol that are available, there's high density, low density, very low density, lipoproteins, and so on, and triglycerides, and all the different components. But the fact is that at the end of the day, what these things are attempting to do, according to this hypothetical situation, is they're attempting to really transport toxins and potentially harmful substances away from areas where they can do a lot of harm to areas where they can do less harm. And what that basically means, therefore, is that in many ways a high cholesterol reading on a blood test is indicative of a high level of substances in the body that the body is not comfortable with. And it opens up a whole new paradigm for us to view this situation in, because the most common thing that happens with high cholesterol is that the person is told that they're eating too much oily foods. And whilst that might be true, as you'll hear in this voice note that's going to follow, the dietary changes that are recommended to lower cholesterol many times will not directly lower the cholesterol, even though you might say, well, cholesterol is fat or oil, and if you eat less oil then is less cholesterol. Because the cholesterol is a surrogate marker, it's a representative of the fact that there's a lot of stuff in the bloodstream that needs to be transported around safely, and so to do so the body needs to release more cholesterol into the bloodstream to be able to wrap those up in some neat little packages and push them around. So it's not surprising then that a high cholesterol reading is often seen in relationship with a risk of cardiovascular disease, heart attack, stroke, kidney problems, atherosclerosis, as plaque inside the arteries. All of these things move together, not because cholesterol is a bad thing, but because cholesterol is required to help to deal with a bad thing. So therefore, when I see a patient who has a high cholesterol, my first thought is, okay, what environmental factors could be explaining this? Meaning, is a person working around a lot of pesticides or household chemicals or industrial chemicals or some anything at all that might trigger the body to become very inflamed. Is there something happening within the person internally that could be triggering ongoing inflammation? Is it that the person's diet is in fact the case, that the cause, because the person eats a lot of ultra processed foods with a lot of additives, preservatives, GMO food that has been highly, for example, deep fried. And so what it does now is it opens up the possibility that eating well might not be the only solution to this patient's problems. And so we start to investigate the cause. And one of the many things that we do to help people with high cholesterol is what we discussed in a few episodes back. I think it may have been episode 30 or 31, maybe 31, where we spoke about the gallbladder flush. Very important feature for helping to clear that biliary tree that we spoke about, wash out the liver from all the sludge and old chemicals and old hormones that would have been stored there, kind of blocking up the drainage. Interestingly enough, for those of you who know about gallstones, when people develop gallstones, some of the time the components, the ingredients in the gallstones, those kind of concreted sludge within the gallbladder, a lot of the components actually are cholesterol. Imagine that. And that's an interesting concept that I'll just put there and leave alone. I'm gonna play a voice note for you, and then we'll be right back. Catch you soon.
So, Doc, I'm going to share something with you for you to be the judge and let me know. From 2017, every year I do an executive profile. I get a copy of the results. And the consistent problem is high cholesterol, sometimes A1C, and all the time anemic. I've been put on Crestor multiple times. And in the last year, instead of 10 milligrams, every night I'm given 20 milligrams. So last year, this July, I took a decision to go vegan and whole foods, plant-based. Listen to these cardiologists, vegan diet. And so when I did my executive profile in the usual time, October, I realized my cholesterol didn't change much. In fact, it got worse. I got discouraged, and I attributed that to the coconut milk I'm using. But I stayed away from meat, and I continue to stay away from meat because I've lost a taste for meat, maybe some fish occasionally. Now, I was not feeling well from last week, Thursday. I felt a pressure in the middle of my chest and in my upper back, the right side of my head, not pain, but pressure. And I was exhausted, and I checking my blood pressure every night. It was 90, about 50-something, 92, 94, over 65, everyday low. And by Tuesday of this week, Wednesday, Tuesday, I was completely exhausted. I went to work, didn't feel well. Send a message to the company doctor. He says, leave from the facility that you're at. Come to the plant and let us check. They checked me and they said, do you have a history of anemia? And the cholesterol is high. Are you taking iron tablets? No. Have you been taking a cholesterol medicine? No, I don't like to take them. Well, we're going to do some blood work. So they wrote me for the blood work, went yesterday to the lab next door to me, and did the blood work. Lo and behold, came back. For the first time since 2017, my cholesterol is fine. I am not taking the Crestor. The only thing I've done different is the 2 gallbladder flush. So I'm wondering, even my number for my HB is better. And I'm not eating as strict a vegan diet as I was when I started. So here it is. I'm going to send you 2 snapshots of my blood report. The one that I did yesterday, I got the results today, and my cholesterol for the first time without medication. Yes, I've gone vegan from last July, but that wasn't moving the needle. The only thing I've done different is the 2 gallbladder flushes. So I don't know if that could be part of the reason I'm putting it out to you.
All right, we're back. And yeah, I realize that this is just a bite-sized episode, but I think it's a nice, punchy episode for us to have further discussion around. You're welcome to make comments. You're welcome to share your thoughts. I know it's probably going to spark a lot of discussion, but remember I said it was hypothetical. And I mean, we have multiple pieces of evidence to suggest that reducing inflammation in the body is going to cause an overall benefit. The other thing to point out is that when the cardiologists, heart specialists are now looking at evaluating a patient's cardiovascular risk. In a way, there is an understanding that in addition to evaluating the patient's cholesterol level, there also is a need to evaluate other markers of inflammation, such as the C-reactive protein, highly sensitive C-reactive protein, the homocysteine levels. Of course, the whole cholesterol panel is almost always done, but there's a wider view being taken out of cardiovascular disease, and my thought is that the wider view needs to be looked at in a wholesome way, meaning if it is that, according to the hypothesis, cholesterol is actually a response to what is happening otherwise in the body, and it's a protective response, then we need to start looking in a different way at the relationship between cholesterol and inflammation, and seeing how we can start tackling the inflammation up front and not necessarily just the cholesterol. And it may be that the benefit that we're seeing by improving a patient's diet and lifestyle, maybe that benefit is not due to the lowering of the cholesterol, so to speak, as much as it is due to the lowering of the inflammation. And because those inflammation and toxic levels are brought down, then the cholesterol also goes down. But we're thinking that the cholesterol is what is helping the patient. Of course, the story about using cholesterol medication hits close to home, because I've had family members who have been placed on it who have had really, really bad experiences. That is not to say that I necessarily myself am against using conventional medications for cholesterol. However, I've just had personal experiences with family members who have had really, really bad outcomes whilst on it. And so if we can look at it from a different vantage point or viewpoint, why not? Let's do it. Because somebody with fatty liver, we even start thinking about something like PCOS, in which cholesterol and insulin levels start to get thrown into the discussion. There's a lot of patients who would benefit significantly from a second look at what's really happening here. But the next time you hear somebody saying they have cholesterol issues, don't be tempted to immediately say to them, oh, cut out oil out of your diet, oh, cut out chicken out of your diet, cut out whatever out of the diet. Because whilst those things in general may be helpful, it is likely that it's not the cholesterol itself that is the issue, but there's a deeper issue that needs to be evaluated. Thank you for listening to me. What I'm gonna do is close out with a few images or videos of one of my favorite trips to take, which is a trip from Kingston down to Montego Bay on the beautiful highway. I think it's called I don't even know what the highway is called, but we call it the toll road here in Jamaica. So I'm gonna close out with some pictures and videos from one of my most scenic routes to drive, and I'm gonna see you next week, where we're gonna resume hopefully talking a little bit about specific cancers. And as usual, I have some great news coming up related to my book, as well as an additional announcement to make about ways how we can provide more value to our healthy reasoners and beyond. Thank you for listening to me, and I look forward to the next episode with you guys. See you soon.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Healthy Reasonings podcast. Remember to subscribe to this podcast so you can be updated as soon as new episodes are ready. If you have a question, send us a voice note on WhatsApp or a WhatsApp message. The WhatsApp number is 1-876-405-7831. For more information or to become a sponsor, please email wellnessdocjamaica@gmail.com. See you soon.